Well, let's give, and I said it as I came down the steps, we have people watching us live on Facebook and YouTube. So can we give a big hello to everybody watching? Well, I think that they heard you, huh? Now, so you know why you're here. Do you think the stage is scary enough? Will it give you goosebumps? All right. Well, I'm bringing in a special lady who works at the library, Miss Leanne Potter. And she, give her a hand, because she is going to introduce our special guest.
Good morning. We are so excited that you are here, and what a special treat to have the Librarian of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden, welcome you this morning. We're really tickled she was able to do that. So welcome to the library, welcome to this very special day, and I want to do a couple of special shout outs to you because I know who's here in the room. First of all, I want to recognize all of the students as well as their teachers and their chaperones who are here at the Library of Congress today in our Coolidge Auditorium, and if you'll hold your applause until the very end for yourselves, that would be great. From Washington, D.C., we welcome students from Capitol Hill Montessori School, Okay, one more time. I'm going to read like 7 schools, so we'll wait till the very end and cheer, but I'm glad you're all here. From St. Patrick's Day School, from Plummer Elementary School, from Capitol Hill Day School, from Morey Elementary School. Also, we have a school from Maryland. We have the Calverton School from Huntingtown. We also have students from the Langley School in McLean, Virginia. And as Dr. Hayden mentioned, we're really excited that there are students also watching us. Oh, it kind of works. We're also excited that students are viewing this program this morning on the library's website as well as the library's YouTube and Facebook channels. Later today, you guys are going to have an opportunity to ask some questions of your own. And we also are inviting students who are watching the live stream to send questions via Twitter, and you can use the hashtag Goosebumps to send your questions, and I'll repeat that later in the program as well. So now on with our show. It is my pleasure this morning to be introducing you to our very special author. R.L. Stine is one of the best-selling children's authors in history. In July 1992, Scholastic introduced the very first Goosebumps book. The whole series began with the book Welcome to Dead House. Nearly 25 years later, Goosebumps is now one of the best-selling children's series of all time. With more than 350 million English language books in print, plus an additional 50 million international copies in print in 24 different languages. The Goosebumps series made R.L. Stine a worldwide publishing celebrity. His other popular children's book series include Fear Street, Mostly Ghostly, The Nightmare Room, and Rotten School. Other titles include It's the First Day of School Forever, A Midnight Scream, Young Scrooge, and he has written 2 picture books illustrated by Mark Brown, The Little Shop of Monsters and Mary McScary. His books have also inspired programs and movies. The Goosebumps TV show was the #1 children's show in America for 3 years, and the episodes can still be seen on streaming services. And the feature film Goosebumps, based on his book series, was released in theaters in October of 2015. The sequel, Goosebumps 2, Haunted Halloween, will be released in just a couple of weeks. R.L. Stine lives in New York City with his wife Jane, who is an editor and a publisher, and he is here with us today. Please join me in welcoming R.L. Stine.
You put me near Slappy.
I did.
I
only
was going to
because
sit
when I
over
saw
there.
Him, he scared me a little bit. So
What?
when they asked me
Slappy
what
is evil. I don't really like sitting next to him.
Yeah, we're
How
kind of hoping
nice.
he'll just stay there.
How nice to be here today. How many of you have ever read a Goosebumps book? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Quite a few.
Nice. And how many of you saw the Goosebumps movie with Jack Black playing me, right? Jack and I are like twins, don't you think? What do you think? Not quite. Not quite.
Fabulous. Okay, so I've got a really important question for you. In the exchanges that we have been having with colleagues about this program, I was asking, how could I introduce you? Do I call him RL? Do I call him Robert? Do I call him Mr. Stine? And they said, he goes by Bob. So I've got a question. On all your books, you're R.L. Stine.
Yeah, no one ever called me RL in my life. No, I used to be funny. I wrote joke books for a long time. I just wrote joke books. Here, you want to hear one of my best jokes? Want to hear a joke? All right, it's a kid's joke. It's a kid's joke. What do you get when you cross a dog with a frog? You get a dog that can lick himself from across the room. That's it. See, now I made a living with jokes like that, and yeah, all right. It was, I was known as Jovial Bob Stine. That was my name, Jovial Bob Stine. And then I got scary, and I started writing scary books, and I thought, well, Jovial Bob Stine, that's a horrible name for a horror writer, right? And so I just used my initials. And people always say, well, kids always say, what does RL stand for? What does RL, and they expect something scary.
Yeah. Love it. Well, no, I think it's a great story. I think that's better. Mike is better. Thank you. Yeah, just a little bit. So I'm glad you mentioned that you wrote jokes, because I read that when you were about 9 years old, about the age of some of our students here in the audience, that you found a typewriter. Is the story true? Did you find a typewriter and start writing jokes? Yeah.
I've never seen a typewriter.
It's great.
You have to go to museums to see typewriters.
I love it. I love it. But so at 9 years old, you started writing jokes and stories using that typewriter?
I found this old typewriter, I dragged it into my room, and I started writing stories, little joke books, funny things, stories, and I'd be in my room for hours, typing. I don't know why. Why did I find it so interesting? I don't know. And my parents didn't understand it at all. My mother would stand outside my door, and she'd say, what's wrong with you? Go outside and play. Go outside. And I'd say, it's boring out there. Type. And I've been doing that ever since.
I think it's great. Well, you've written so many books. Here at the Library of Congress, this is the largest library in the world. And when we go into the card catalog here at the library and try to get a sense of how many books has a particular author written, we're used to seeing, a handful. Well, when we did a search on R.L. Stine in the library's catalog, we found hundreds of titles. So we're curious. Where do all of your ideas come from?
I don't know. Where do they come from? Where do your ideas come from?
Well, and how do you
we
keep
all
track
get
of them?
ideas, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Here, I will tell you, how many of you have read The Haunted Mask? or have you seen the TV show of The Haunted Mask? That's a Halloween story.
Yeah.
It's about a girl named Carly Beth who wants to be scary at Halloween time. And she tries on this very scary mask, and it sticks to her face. And she can't get it off, and it becomes her face, and it turns her evil. And I will tell you where the idea came from for that story.
Yeah.
It actually came from my son Matt when he was a little guy. It was Halloween, and I was watching Matt. He was down on the floor trying on a green rubber Frankenstein mask. And he pulled it down over his head, and he couldn't get it off. And I'm watching from the doorway, and he's down there, and he's tugging, and he's tugging. And I thought, what a great idea. I should have helped him, right? Instead, I went and started making notes and saying, oh, great idea for a story.
Perfect.
And poor Matt is still in the mask.
Yeah.
It's a very sad story.
All these
That's
right
where that
there.
one came
I
from.
love it.
You never know where you're going to
That's
get
right.
ideas.
You're right.
One day I was walking my dog in the park, and these words popped into my head. Say cheese and die. I thought, what? Wait, what? Why? Why did those words? And then I started thinking, well, what if there was an evil camera? What if some kids discovered the camera? And what if the camera took pictures of bad things that happened to you a little bit in the future? And that's how that book, Say Cheese and Die, got started, just from those words popping into my head.
And then it became a whole
So,
book.
yeah, you never know. You never know where ideas are going to come from.
Well, when you have a unique idea, one of the other functions, I mentioned that the Library of Congress is the largest library in the world. We're also home to the U.S. Copyright Office. Have you guys ever heard the word copyright before? Okay, so when you have an idea, or when you write a book, one of the things that you're encouraged to do is submit that book to the U.S. Copyright Office so that you own a copyright on your work. That means your ideas are yours and your ideas are protected. And when we did our search on all of the titles in our collection, we asked our colleagues if they would send over to our office a bunch of them. So we have about 10% of the books that are in the Library of Congress that you wrote with us today. And many of these books were submitted when the copyright was requested. And we contacted our colleague, in fact, George is here somewhere, contacted a colleague of ours in the Copyright Office, and we said, hey, I don't suppose you have the copyright registration forms for all of the hundreds of books that Mr. Stine has written? And he responded through an email, and he was like, well, of course we do. We're the U.S. Copyright Office. And just for fun, I went by his office yesterday, and he gave me something that we have a gift for you.
A gift?
So yeah, this is an official copy of your very first copyright registration form for the very, very first Goosebumps book.
How strange.
How about that?
Good. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, we thought that was pretty neat.
That is amazing.
So when
You know, the very first Goosebumps book was Welcome to Dead House.
Yeah.
And I think it's the scariest book of them all, because I didn't quite know what I was doing. It was the first one I ever wrote. And it doesn't have the funny stuff. I always like to do a book that's scary and funny at the same time. And this one is just scary, I think. Yeah. The second one, Stay Out of the Basement, I found that has funny stuff in it.
Yeah.
I figured out what I was doing.
was
This
gonna
is
say,
amazing to see.
Yeah, we thought
It's
you'd get a kick
yeah,
out
I've
of that.
never seen anything with
Yeah.
copyrights.
We put a copy of it up on the
not-
screen so you guys could see. It's just a 2-page form,
Yeah.
but we have lots of them. So
I guess that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Yeah.
So when you wrote that first Goosebumps book, did you imagine it would become a series with more than 60
No, I said
titles?
when we wrote the first one, I said, oh, we'll do 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That was it. I
Yeah.
didn't know people would like it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I wanted to be funny.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it at all. And I used to go to schools and I'd say, why do you like these books? And kids always said, we like to be scared. And so I thought, okay, forget the funny stuff. I'll be scary from now on.
So do you guys like to be scared? Do you think that...
I don't know. I think that was a yes or no question.
I was going to say, I think it got a
Yeah.
reaction, didn't it? I think it means that they would love it if you would tell us a scary story.
Well, you know, it's almost Halloween. I'm going to stand up.
Okay.
They took away my
Yeah,
podium.
I was going to say,
It
we could probably
vanished.
get the podium back if you wanted
Vanishing
it
podium,
back.
but I'm going to stand up anyway and see if I can come over here. Nope, the light's terrible. And I'm going to tell you, let me ask you a question first. How many of you have ever seen a ghost? How many? No, I mean a real ghost, not on television, not in the movies. How many? Who has seen a real ghost? Okay, that's a lot. Well, maybe I saw a ghost once. I don't know. I'm going to tell you, can just help me decide. I'm going to tell you a true ghost story that happened to my brother Bill and me when we were kids back in Ohio. It was Halloween time, and Bill and I were very excited because it was the first Halloween that we were allowed to go out trick-or-treating without our parents. We were going out by ourselves for the first time. And we both got dressed as ghosts. We put sheets down and we cut out eyes, and we were very scary ghosts. And we got shopping bags, big shopping bags, to collect for all the candy we were going to collect. And I took a can of that silly string, you know that stuff? You squeeze it and the string comes out. Just in case we had to string somebody. And I tucked it into my costume, and Bill and I went outside. It was a cold October night. I remember it was that kind of cold that like clings to the back of your neck. And the ground was all crunchy hard from the frost. There was a tiny sliver of a moon, half covered in cloud, high in the sky. And Bill and I, we always started out trick-or-treating at Mrs. Dawson's house across the street. And that was just our tradition. We always started there. But now I looked across the street, and her house was completely dark. I said, I guess she's not home, Bill. We'll have to go on without her. So we started at the next house and started trick-or-treating down the block. My family was very poor. We lived in a tiny little house on some blocks of very tiny houses, which was great at Halloween time because it meant you didn't have to go up any long driveways, you didn't have any long walks, you could just go from house to house. So Bill and I, we went 3 or 4 blocks down, and then we went 3 or 4 blocks and came back. And by the time we came back, our bags were just bulging with candy. And I looked across the street, and I saw a light on in Mrs. Dawson's front window. I said, Bill, I guess she's back. Let's go over there. So as we went up her driveway, I could see it wasn't a light. It was a big jack-o'-lantern with a big grin on its face, bright yellow fire inside it. And we walked up and got on Mrs. Dawson's front stoop, and I knocked on the door, and we waited. She didn't come. So I knocked again, and I rang the bell. She didn't come to the door. Bill said, she's in there, Bob. Go ahead, string her. So I took out the silly string, and I raised it to her door, and then I stopped. I stopped and I froze because I saw the jack-o'-lantern in the front window had changed. It wasn't yellow anymore. It was a bright scarlet red, and it had a big frown on its face, a big scowl. And I dropped the can of silly string, and Bill and I started to run down the driveway. We were halfway down the driveway when the front door swung open, and Mrs. Dawson came out. I remember she was in this gray nightgown, this long gray nightgown. I remember it fluttering in the wind, fluttering. And she said, "Why did you wake me? Why did you wake me?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Dawson. I didn't know. I'm really sorry." But can I ask you one question? How did you do that with your jack-o'-lantern? And she said, jack-o'-lantern? I don't have a jack-o'-lantern. And Bill and I looked in the front window. It was completely dark. Nothing there. Well, we ran across the street, went up to our room. We dumped out all the candy. We divided it all up. We never mentioned it again. We didn't mention the jack-o'-lantern. We didn't say a thing about it. The next morning, I woke up and I thought, you know what? I should apologize to Mrs. Dawson. We woke her up. That wasn't right. So I got dressed for school, had breakfast, and then I went across the street to apologize, but there was a big truck in Mrs. Dawson's driveway, and these men going in and out of her house. And I went up to one of the workers, and I said, what's going on? And he said, I guess you're getting new neighbors, kid. I said, why? What do you mean? He said, oh, I'm sorry. Didn't you hear? Mrs. Dawson died 2 weeks ago. That's my true ghost story. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think we liked that story.
Well, do you think maybe I made up part of that true story? What do you think? Do you think maybe I made up a lot of that true story? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know.
I love it. So I know that we all enjoy the titles of your books, and you've named a few of them. Do you have any favorites?
A few favorite titles? One of my favorite titles is Little Shop of Hamsters.
Little Shop
It's
of
totally
Hamsters.
ridiculous.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I like my favorite book, I think, is The Haunted Mass that I was talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's my best Halloween story.
Yeah.
And I like all the books with Slappy.
Yeah.
And I've written a lot of Slappy. You know, the new Goosebumps books are called Goosebumps Slappy World because Slappy is so
He's
popular.
such a prime character.
And
yeah.
I love writing him because he insults everybody. He's very rude.
It's great.
And that's fun to write.
Great. So how do you come up with the titles, though? Is it like you
No,
said,
they
you're
just
walking
come to
them,
me.
they
That's
just come to you?
all I do.
Yeah?
To be honest, I
Yeah.
mean, and kids don't care about this,
Yeah.
but I don't even try to think of ideas anymore
Yeah. They
because
just
I've
come
done
to you.
every story a person can do.
Yeah.
I just try to think of titles.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of Slappy books because he's so popular. And Slappy is the star of Goosebumps 2. He's the star of the new Goosebumps movie. Slappy's incredible in the movie.
That's great.
And trying to think, the newest Goosebumps book, I had this title, The Ghost of Slappy. I killed him.
And then brought him back as a
I
ghost.
killed him. But of course he comes back.
Yeah, yeah. So I understand you sometimes play games with students where you give us a quiz whether it's a real title or a fake title. Should we play
Here's
a little
quiz. Here's a quiz, but let's do this. I want to see how much you really know about Goosebumps, okay? This is a list of Goosebumps titles. Some of them are real, some of them are fake. And let's see if you can tell which ones are real and which ones are fake, okay? Just shout it out. You just have to shout out fake or real, okay? Here we go. 1, Son of Slappy. No, you're right. Yes, real. You're right. Real. All right, number 2. Number 2. You just have to shout it once. We'll be fine. Frosty the Abominable Snowman. Fake. That's fake. That's fake. Number 3. The Barking Ghost. Hey, you guys are good. Yeah, that's real. How about this one? Morons from Mars. Yeah, it's fake. That one's fake, but I would think that would make a great Goosebumps title. Hey, Morons from Mars, you know, and I sent that title to my editors, and I said, let's do a Goosebumps called Morons from Mars, And they said, well, you can't do that. You might offend the morons. So I couldn't do that one. Here, let's try this one. Number 5, it came from my nose. Fake. That one's fake. That one's fake.
But that's a good one, too.
Creature teacher. Can't tell one thing. No, that one's real. That one's real. Attack of the 2,000-pound dachshund. How about I'll eat your breakfast? That's fake. That's fake too, but that would be a good title.
I was going to say, that's a great
I think
title.
that's scary, somebody eating your breakfast.
I think any
I
one
think
of
that
those.
would be. And then how about I am Slappy's evil twin? Yeah, that one's real. That one's real. You guys are good.
Oh, I love
You guys
it.
are scary.
So, book titles do certainly give us a sense of a book's contents,
Okay,
but
quiet.
sometimes it helps to have a little bit more of a description of a book when you're deciding if it's a book you want to read or not. So you guys know when you go to a library and you look at your card catalog, not only do you get the title of a book, but you also get a description of the book that you're considering reading. Well, those descriptions are often written right here at the Library of Congress. We have a group of colleagues who work in the building next door to this building, in our Madison building, who are part of the library's cataloging division. And part of their job is to read books and then write descriptions of those books that end up in the card catalog. And one of our colleagues who does that, her name is Anne, and she's here today too. I sent her a note and I said, Anne, do you remember ever writing any of the summaries for any of R.L. Stine's books? And she immediately responded and she said, of course. And then she gave me a list of a whole bunch of them. So I'm going to read you a couple of them. One of the books that you've already mentioned, Welcome to Dead House, Anne's the one who wrote the description or the summary for that book that appears in every card catalog. And this is the summary. It reads, Amanda and Josh move with their parents into an old haunted house located in the strange town of Dark Falls, where people are unlike any they have known before. Do you think it'd be
Interesting.
hard to capture an entire book in less than 30
That's
words?
pretty good in 2
I was
sentences.
gonna say, that's a
pretty
pretty
good.
good one.
Yeah.
And here's another one. The title of the book is Why I'm Afraid of Bees, and here's Anne's description. Gary's dream is about to come true. He's going to exchange bodies with another kid for a whole week, but the new body isn't human. That's a pretty good description, too.
It's a bee. Where's that part? It's a bee.
Yeah, it kind of
Yeah,
the
well,
title gave that one away.
And then
It's
he
true.
has to spend a night in a
Yeah,
beehive.
I love it. I
He's
love
inside a beehive all night. That's creepy.
It is creepy.
I'd hate that.
I don't think I'd like that
I would
either.
hate that.
Might you like to read a little bit from one of your books?
I could read. Yeah,
All
I could
right.
read something.
Awesome.
I thought I would read you, since we're here, I
Since
might
we're
as well, you know. This is the very first chapter of the first Goosebumps Slappy World book. Have you seen this? It's Slappy Birthday to You. And this is how I thought, this is just how the book starts out. And it has a really weird and stupid chapter ending. So it's good. That's why I like to read it. On Ian Barker's 12th birthday, he received a gift that brought pain and terror to him and his entire family. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's try to enjoy Ian's birthday for as long as we can. Just keep in mind that it was not the birthday Ian had hoped for. In fact, it quickly became a day he would have given anything to forget. Ian came down to breakfast on that sunny spring morning, eager for his special day to begin. Almost at once, he had trouble with his 9-year-old sister, Molly. But that was nothing new. If you ask Ian, how do you spell Molly, he'd say Trouble. Since blueberry pancakes were Ian's favorite, Mrs. Barker had a tall stack of them on the table. Ian and Molly ate peacefully for a while. Molly liked her pancakes drowned in maple syrup, and she used up most of the syrup before Ian had a chance. But Ian didn't complain. He was determined to be cheerful on his birthday. But then they came down to the last pancake. When they both stabbed a fork into it, that's when the trouble began. Mine, Ian said. You've already had 6. But I saw it first, Molly insisted. She kept her fork poking into her side of the pancake. It's my birthday, Ian reminded her. I should get what I want today. You always think you should get what you want, Molly declared. Molly has wavy red hair and blue eyes, and when she gets into an argument about pancakes or anything else, her pale, lightly freckled cheeks turn bright pink. Their mom turned from the kitchen counter. She'd been arranging cupcakes on a tray for Ian's birthday party. Fighting again? We're not fighting, Molly said. We're disputing. Ooh, big word, Ian said, rolling his eyes. I'm so totally impressed. They both kept their forks in the last remaining pancake. You're a jerk, Molly said. I know you know that word. Don't call Ian names on his birthday, Mrs. Barker said. Wait till tomorrow. She had a good sense of humor. Sometimes the kids appreciated it, sometimes they didn't. Why don't you split the pancake in 2, she suggested. Good idea, Ian said. He used his fork to divide the pancake into 2 pieces. No fair, Molly cried. Your half is twice as big as mine. Ian laughed and gobbled up his half before Molly could do anything about it. Molly frowned at her brother. Don't you know how to eat, slob? You have syrup on your chin. Ian raised the syrup bottle. How would you like it in your hair? Whoa. Mrs. Barker turned away from the cupcakes and stepped to the table. Stop, she said. Breakfast is over. She took the syrup bottle from Ian's hand. You're 12 now. You really have to stop all the fighting. But, Ian started. She squeezed Ian's shoulder. Your cousins are coming for your party. I want you to be extra nice to them and don't pick fights the way you always do. Ian groaned. Vinny and Johnny? They always start it. Ian always starts it, Molly chimed in. Shut up, Ian cried. Just listen to me, Mrs. Barker pleaded. I want you to be nice to your cousins. You know their parents have been going through a tough time. Uncle Donnie is still out of work, and Aunt Marie is getting over that operation. Could I have a cupcake now, Molly asked. Ian slapped the table. If she has one, I want one too. Have you heard a word I said? Their mom demanded. I swear I won't start any fights with Johnny. And Vinny, Ian said. He raised his right hand as if swearing an oath. Then he stood up from his seat and started toward the cupcake tray. Hands off, Mrs. Barker said. Go get your dad, Ian. Tell him the guests will be arriving soon. Where is he? Ian asked. In his workshop, his mom answered. Where else? Where else? Molly mimicked. Ian walked down the back hall to the door to the basement. He thought about Johnny and Vinny. Johnny and Vinny lived just a few blocks away. Johnny was 12 and Vinny was 11, but they looked like twins. They were both big bruisers, tough guys, big for their age, loud and grabby with pudgy round heads, short-cropped blonde hair, and upturned pig noses. At least that's how Ian described them. The kind of guys who are always bumping up against people and each other, always giggling, always grinning about something mean. Mean guys. They're just jealous of you. That's what Mrs. Barker always told Ian. They're your only cousins, so you have to be nice to them. Ian opened the basement door and went down the stairs 2 at a time. The air grew warmer as he reached the basement, and it smelled of glue. Under bright white ceiling lights, his father stood, hunched over his long work table. He turned as Ian approached. Oh, hi, Ian. Hey, Dad, Ian started. Mom says, here's a birthday surprise for you, Mr. Barker said. He reached both hands to his face, plucked out his eyes, and held them up to Ian. That's chapter 1.
You like that ending?
I
He
love
plucks
it.
out
I
his
love
eyes?
the
Come on.
unexpectedness of it. I
That's-
like the
that's chapter
reaction,
1.
too. That's fabulous. So you mentioned
Yeah.
that Slappy.
Yeah, I know. Those may be fake eyes, you know. His father is a doll repairman.
So
Yeah,
later in that book, we learn a little bit more about Slappy. And like you mentioned earlier, that Slappy plays a starring role in an upcoming film.
Not an upcoming film. In Goosebumps 2,
That's right.
Haunted Halloween.
Haunted Halloween,
which
and
is-
it's going to be in
It's
theaters.
out a week from
I was
Friday.
going to say October the 12th.
Right.
So I'm curious, what's it like when... What is it like when your books
What's it like to be a
become
character in a
movies?
movie?
Yes, what's
to have
that
somebody
like?
playing you,
Yeah.
like Jack Black, what a weird thing. I sit there and they're talking about me in the movie. It's very strange.
Yeah.
I had a great time. Jack Black is a terrific guy. I'm so happy he plays me. We had a lot of fun together. And I went down, actually, I had my little 5-second cameo in the first film. And we went down and I shot it. We were in a school and I walk out and Jack's there and I say, "Hello, Mr. Stine." That's my line in the movie. I say,
You're
"Hello,
saying hello
Mr."
to yourself.
And he says, "Hello, Mr. Black." And we walked on.
That's
And that was my 5 seconds in the movie. And guess how many times they shot it? Guess how many?
3.
3? 25.
25.
They shot it 25 times.
That's great.
I couldn't believe it. And I was hungry. It was lunchtime. I wanted to go get lunch. And they kept shooting the scene over and over again. So I might be in the next one. I might be in the new one.
So we should
They
look
have
for
to look
you.
for me at the very end of the film.
great.
At the very end. It's Slappy in this one. It's a Halloween movie. It's Halloween time. And Slappy, in his evil way, decides to bring everything Halloween to life. He goes into a drugstore and he brings all the masks to life, and all the Halloween toys, and all the costumes, and all the witches' hats, and all the creatures, and everything comes to life. It's an amazing scene at the end of the new movie. Just all of Halloween everywhere. And I have to warn you that the scariest scene involves gummy bears. This is my favorite. No, this is my favorite. I know they're cute, right? You think they're cute. But in this movie, it's not too cute when gummy bears attack.
Yeah.
It's really pretty incredible. That's my favorite thing in the whole movie.
That's great.
So I hope everyone goes a week from Friday.
Week from Friday.
Goosebumps 2.
Haunted Halloween.
Yeah.
I have a hunch some of the students in our audience here might have some questions for you as well.
Well, that would be good. How are you going to do it?
Yeah.
You
so
need
we
somebody,
have-
because
we
we can't
have- I
hear.
was gonna say,
We won't
so
be able to hear them.
We have 3 microphones
Oh,
that are
nice.
stationed in different parts of our theater.
Nice.
And our colleagues, Sasha and Kalina, I know, have a couple, and they are going to be asking students in their little quadrants of the theater if they have questions. So students, if you have a question, do raise your hand and let one of my friends with the microphones call on you. And when you ask your question, if you would start by saying your name and then ask your question, and the rest of us are going to listen for the answer, okay? And we also have the opportunity for those of you who are watching our program on the live stream, if you also have questions that you want to ask, you can go on Twitter and use the hashtag Goosebumps. And again, a colleague in our theater is reading those tweets so your questions can be answered as well. So, Kalina, how about you go ahead and find someone with a question?
Who has a question? Okay, let's see. Right here. Can you come on over? So tell us your name and then your question.
My name is Chris, and my question is, how old were you when you made your first book?
Great question.
How old was I when I made my first book? the first book I ever had published
Okay.
was called How to Be Funny. It was how to be funny in school and how to get big laughs at the dinner table. Parents hated this book. They hated it. And I was 28.
28.
I'd been writing since I was 9, I started writing, but I was 28 when I had my first book published.
Great. Excellent question. All right. Sasha, how about you? You've got a question.
We have a question from a family who's watching online at More Than a Homeschool Mom says, from my son, what was the hardest book for you to write and what was the easiest?
Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer. They're all pretty easy for me. I'm very lucky because I love to write so much and it just comes so easily to me. I write 10 pages every day and I never have trouble. I can always write my 10 pages a day. There was a Goosebumps book called Cry of the Cat that I had to write 3 times. Nobody liked it. That happens, once in a while that happens where I write a book and none of my editors like it and they send it back.
Yeah,
That one I had to write 3 times. So that was the hardest. But I'm just so lucky, it's so easy for me to write.
Okay.
Sasha, yeah.
My name is Kamani, and my question is, who is your favorite character in your Goosebumps movies and why?
My favorite characters, well, I really enjoy myself. I like Jack Black. No, don't clap for that. In the new movie, it's all new cast. It's all new kids, whole new family. And the 3 kids in the new movie, I think you'll really like them. And I think maybe you'll recognize some of them. The boy from It, he's in the film, and yeah. And they're just wonderful. They're a great part of the film. I think you'll like them.
Another good question. Okay.
My name is Sophia, and my question is, who is your favorite evil person from Goosebumps and why?
Here's my favorite monster in Goosebumps. How many of you ever read Welcome to Camp Jelly Jam? Do you know that one? Jelly Jam is this huge blob. He's a huge blob this is my smelly book. And he's horrible odor. He smells so bad, he has to be bathed 24 hours a day. So all the campers that come to his camp, that's what they do. They bathe him all day long and all night. And then finally, I'm going to spoil the ending for you. They get, I'm going to. Then they decide they've had it with him, it's enough, and they stop bathing him, and he dies from his own smell. That's my favorite.
I think there's a
I love
lesson
him.
in there somewhere. I love it.
I know, I love him.
All right. How about up there?
Okay, what is your name and your question?
I'm Sabella, and my question is, what were your favorite and your least favorite books you've ever written?
Those are hard. These are hard questions. I have a lot of Goosebumps books that I'm very proud of that I really like. And there's one, a fairly recent one called Attack of the Jack. And it's about jack-o'-lanterns that come to life. But I really like this. I like this book because there's a talking cat in it. There's a talking cat in the book, and I can't believe they let me get away with that. So that's one of my favorites. Then there's some that are, I don't really like that much. I shouldn't talk about this, but there's a Goosebumps book called The Barking Ghost that I don't think is very good.
Our next question. So tell us.
Alina, you've got
My
another
name
one.
is Jerome Wood. I'm from Plummer, and my question was after
Who has a
Goosebumps
question?
2
Alina,
gets
we can't hear that.
after Goosebumps 2 gets old, are you going to make a third one?
What?
I think he asked if after
What did he ask?
Goosebumps, the Goosebumps
After the second
2,
movie, is there gonna
are
be a
you gonna
third
have
one?
a third movie?
Well, I hope so. People have to come to this one. if everyone comes to this one, I think they'll want to make another one, right? If people don't go, I think that'll be it, 1 and 2. You never know. I would love to do more movies.
Sasha?
We have a question on Twitter at Mike G. Real wants to know, what is the greatest piece of advice you would give to an author just starting out?
The best advice I would give, I never give advice. I never give advice because I always think people who are going to become authors and really want to be authors are like me. And they just write all the time. They're always writing. And you don't have to tell them, why don't you write? You don't have to tell them to read a lot because they do. I always think they're like me and they don't need advice. They just want to keep writing and writing and getting better. So I never give advice.
Feeling good. All right. How about another
My
question?
name's Theo. Okay, it's too loud. My name's Theo, and my question is, what is your favorite scene in the original Goosebumps movie?
That's a nice question. To be serious, my favorite scene is in the abandoned amusement park when the 2 teenagers, Dylan Minnette and Adea Rush, are up on top of the Ferris wheel, just sitting and talking together. I just think that's a really sweet scene. And I love that scene. I just think they're so terrific. That's my favorite scene in the first movie.
That's a great question.
I've never been asked that question. That's a first.
Ready?
My name is Tara, and if you made a new Goosebumps book, what would it be?
The one I just started before I came down here yesterday, I just started a Goosebumps book called The Dummy Meets the Mummy. You can kind of guess what that's about, right?
I like that sneak peek. How about back here?
My name is Bryce, and my question is, how did you invent Slappy, and why is it so popular?
Why is that? That's a good question. That I couldn't answer. When I was a kid, I loved puppets, and I had marionettes, and I was just very interested. I would do puppet shows and things. But I was always just very interested in that. This is a horrible story. Here's a terrifying story. When I was really little, I was so little, I still had to take a nap. And my mother would read a chapter of a book to me before my nap every day. And I'm this tiny guy, and for some reason, she chose to read the original Pinocchio to me. And so I'm tiny, ready for my nap, and she reads this chapter of Pinocchio, and in the chapter, Pinocchio he's a wooden puppet. Pinocchio is a wooden puppet. He falls asleep with his feet on the stove, and he burns his feet off. I never forgot that.
I wonder if your nap was very good that day.
I don't know if my nap was good or not that day, but I never forgot that, and I've always just been interested in puppets, and I think that's how Slappy came to be. It's funny how much Slappy looks like Jack Black these days. He's kind of changed, hasn't he? Do I have time for a couple more? I think we might be losing them.
Kalina, how about this one right here?
Who has a really good question?
My name's Steffi, and what's your favorite part of a book out of all of your books?
My favorite part of what?
A book. Out of all of your books that you've written.
My
that you
favorite
wrote.
part?
Part of
What,
any
you know
book
what I
that you
like? I
read.
like the ending. It means I'm done. I like the ending. That's right.
Great answer.
Who has a really good question?
Sasha in the back.
Hi, my name is Phoenix, and I was wondering, what inspired you to create Goosebumps?
What inspired me to do the book series? Is that the question?
Yes.
I was doing a series for teens. I was doing a scary book series for teenagers, which I'm still doing, called Fear Street. And it was teens in terror and horrible things happening to anybody who moved to Fear Street. And my editors came to me and said, why don't we do a scary book series for younger kids? And I, of course, said no. I didn't want to do Goosebumps. That's the kind of businessman I am, right? And they said, no, no one's done it. Let's try it. Let's try it. And so I said, okay, if I can think of a good name for the series, then maybe we can try a couple. And one day I was reading TV Guide, and in those days, that had the program listings in the middle of the magazine. It told you what was on TV. And I'm going through the magazine, and there was a tiny ad at the bottom of the page, and it said, it's Goosebumps Week on Channel 11. And I just stared at it. There it was. I said, that's perfect. We'll call it Channel 11. So, that's a bad joke. I apologize. That's a very bad joke. But that's where the name Goosebumps came from. And then we tried it.
That's perfect.
We're losing him here, I think.
I kind of think that maybe one more question and we're good.
We have one
How about
online.
Right back here. Okay. Here. Oh, okay,
My
one
name-
more. This one and then
One
the one
more.
online. Perfect.
All right.
My name is Travis, and my question is, I go make new Goosebumps book from the new movie Goosebumps 2 from the new characters.
What?
I didn't hear the
Are
question.
we doing what? Say it again.
From the new Goosebumps movie, I go make the book from the new characters in the new Goosebumps movie.
Yeah, well, there is a book. There are two books out about the new movie. And they both tell the story with the new characters and everything. It's all new characters. Yeah, there are two books.
All right.
I think that.
Sasha?
We have a final question from our friends watching online. At Funnel Dog, Stephen Lambert says, my daughter's only 8 months old, so she has a little time before we get to Goosebumps. But I remember them clearly. Remember the bookstore, the first shelf where I picked up my first, The Parking Ghost. Any recommendations for her first Halloween costume based on your books?
Well,
That's perfect. That's perfect.
She's 8 months old?
A little
Her
early.
First Halloween costume.
Yeah, right.
Based
Well,
on
I
your
will
books.
tell you, my grandson Dylan, when he was 2, he's 4 now. When my grandson Dylan was 2 years old, he was going out for Halloween as Slappy. And I have Slappy in my apartment. I have the dummy.
Yeah.
And the clothes, Slappy's clothes, fit my grandson. They fit Dylan perfectly. So we took the clothes off the dummy, and Dylan went out for Halloween as Slappy, wearing Slappy's clothes.
Perfect.
That's pretty good, right?
That's perfect.
I know. He never gave them back,
I
though.
was going to say, yeah.
Poor Slappy now doesn't have a shirt or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know about costumes for an 8-month-old.
That's great. Oh, this has been so much fun.
This has been great. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you're terrific.
Yes. And really,
You're terrific. Thank you so much.
on behalf of the Library of Congress,
Sorry.
Bob, RL, Mr. Stine, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for responding to our questions. Thank you for all that you've done to inspire so many young readers, and really best of luck to you,
Oh,
and
it's a great
excited about your
pleasure.
new film.
A great pleasure.
Thank
What
you
a great
all.
morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.